Okay, I'm just gonna say it. Most leaders don't have a leadership problem, they have a trust problem. And the crazy thing is, they don't even know because people rarely walk into the boss's room and say, "Hey, just a quick feedback. We don't trust you." No, they don't. They become quiet, they nod in meetings, they stop challenging, and they say, "Sounds good. I'm aligned with that. Let's take this offline." All the beautiful corporate language we use. And then nothing happens. And leaders often make a dangerous mistake. They mistake silence for alignment. Welcome. That's where we start. Hi, I'm Kim, and yes, this is my first YouTube video after many years. So if I look slightly terrified, yes, that's because I am. And there's something slightly ironic about that because I spend a lot of time talking about leadership, about visibility, influence, transformation. I encourage people to speak up, to challenge ideas, to take space, and I'm actually quite comfortable doing that on stage, in workshops, in my university classes. Those spaces feel very familiar for me, but YouTube is different because once you put your thoughts out into the world, into the internet, they no longer belong only to you or to your class or the safe space, I call it. People will agree, people will disagree, some people will misunderstand you, and some people will probably have every strong opinion you can imagine. So I guess that's the price of being visible in the internet. So here I am anyway, because I genuinely believe we need more thoughtful conversations about leadership. And I don't want fear to make that decision for me. So here I am. And I want to talk about leadership, but probably not in the way you're used to. I don't want you to give 5 hacks to become a better leader by Monday, because really, leadership is hard. People are complex, organizations are complex, transformation is complex. And if somebody tells you they can solve all of that with 5 hacks, maybe that's your first red flag. So I want us to think. I want us to challenge what we believe about leadership. And ideally, at the end of every episode, you leave with one question. Yes, a question, not an answer. So maybe a question you could use or that follows you into your next meeting or your next conversation, maybe even your next difficult decision. So let's start. Most leaders don't have a leadership problem. As I mentioned in the beginning, they have a trust problem. And the crazy thing is, they don't even know it. Because people rarely tell the boss, "Hey, by the way, we don't trust you," right? They just become quiet. They just stop challenging you. They nod, and leaders often mistake silence for alignment. But silence is not alignment. Sometimes silence is self-protection. And I think we need to talk about that because we have become incredibly good at talking about leadership. Leadership skills, leadership development, new leadership, agile leadership, transformational leadership, authentic leadership. And yeah, we have so much leadership, and still people disengage. People emotionally disconnect from the work. People leave managers. Teams stop speaking, and transformation projects fail. So apparently, knowing more about leadership doesn't automatically make us better leaders. And this is something I've been thinking about a lot. I've been a leader myself for several years, and for the last months, I've been also teaching transformational leadership at Munich University of Applied Science here in Germany. 17 sessions, 1 in person, 16 online in English. 3.5 hours each. And yes, 3.5 hours on Zoom. I know. And teaching leadership while being a leader yourself is really interesting because theory sounds incredibly clear until people get involved, until there's pressure, politics, ego, fears, targets. That's where leadership actually starts. And when I read the feedback from my students at the end of those 17 sessions, one thing really stayed with me. They didn't primarily say Kim taught us another leadership model. They said, I see leadership differently now. And that made me think. And that is transformation. Not knowing more, seeing differently. Because when you see differently, you start acting differently. And when leaders act differently, people experience leadership differently. So here's a question every leader should ask themselves. What happens to people when you enter the room? Do they become smaller, more careful? Do they start choosing their words? Do they start managing your emotions? Or do they become braver? Do they speak? Do they challenge you? Do they grow? Because leadership is not about your presence in the room. It's about what your presence does to the room. And that's uncomfortable because most of us judge our leadership by our intention. But I want people to speak. Yeah, my doors are always open. I told them I want honest feedback. Okay. But leadership is not experienced through your intention. Leadership is experienced through your behavior. You can say, I want you to challenge me. But what happens the first time somebody actually challenges you? Do you get defensive? Do you explain why they are wrong? Do you suddenly become very corporate? Thank you for sharing your perspective, which sometimes mean I absolutely hate what you just said. And people notice. People are incredibly good at reading power, especially when you are the leader, right? They watch what happens and they learn very quickly what is safe here, what gets rewarded, what gets punished, and then they adapt. This becomes even more important during transformations because transformations mean uncertainty. Something is changing. Maybe the strategy, the organizations, the technology, the team, your role. And what do organizations often do then? They create PowerPoints. Yes, a beautiful PowerPoint with arrows and a roadmap and a circle. Yeah, there's always a circle. So people don't follow transformation because you made a beautiful PowerPoint. And trust me, I've seen many beautiful PowerPoints, and I created, when I worked in strategy departments, a lot of beautiful PowerPoints. People follow transformation when they trust the people asking them to move. Strategy might explain the change. Trust determines whether people move with you. And this is why I think trust is one of the most underestimated leadership topics. Yeah, trust sounds soft, culture, people, feelings. And strategy sounds serious, numbers, KPIs, targets. But try implementing a brilliant strategy in a team that doesn't trust its leadership. Good luck. Trust influences what people tell you. So, how early they tell you, whether they admit mistakes, whether they challenge bad decisions, whether they take risks, whether they bring you problems before those problems become catastrophes. That's not soft. That's organizational performance. And here's another misconception. We often think trust is built in big moments, the big speech, the town hall, the leadership offsite. But I don't think that's where trust is primarily built. Trust is not built in one big leadership moment. It's built in tiny moments. How you react when someone disagrees with you. What do you do when someone makes a mistake? Whether you take credit, whether you actually listen. Leadership is happening when you think nobody is evaluating your leadership. Because they are, not consciously. Your team isn't sitting there with a clipboard like, Kim showed active listening today, so 4 out of 5 stars. No, but people experience patterns. They notice consistency or inconsistency. You say, for example, mental health is important. And then celebrate the person who works until midnight every day. You say, oh, we want innovations, and punish the first failed experiment. You say, speak up, and become defensive when someone does. Your culture is not what you say. Your culture is what people learn from watching what happens. And leaders teach culture every single day, whether they realize it or not. And I also think we confuse authority and leadership a lot. Your title gives you authority. It can make people attend your meeting. It can make people answer your email, sometimes incredibly quickly. Yes, it can make people say yes. But do people trust you because of your title or because of how they experience you? Because your title can make people listen. It can make people attend to your meeting. It can make people say yes. But your title cannot make people trust you. Authority can create compliance. Leadership creates movement. And maybe that's the difference I want to explore here. The difference between managing people and moving people, between communication transformation and actually leading through transformation. Being visible and having influence, because those things are not the same. And that's what I want to talk about here. Leadership, transformation, influence, sometimes in English, manchmal auf Deutsch, probably Denglish most of the time, because that's how I think. And honestly, that's how many of us work in international organizations, so mother tongue and English. So can you quickly send me the deck? Wir brauchen mehr alignment. Let's circle back. Das müssen wir mit dem Leadership Team challengen. We all do that, right? So I'm not even going to pretend. This is going to be Denglish. But the question we're going to talk about are serious. How do you create trust? How do you influence without manipulating? Why do transformations fail? What is executive presence actually? How do leaders create psychological safety? What happens when power changes you? And how do you lead people through uncertainty? When maybe you don't have all the answers yourself. So I don't believe leadership is about becoming the loudest person in the room. I don't believe it's about having all the answers. And I definitely don't believe we need more leadership theater. I believe we need leaders who understand the impact they have on people and who are courageous enough to look at themselves. So I promised you one question. Here it is. What happens to people around you because of the way you lead? Not what you intend, not what does your leadership assessment say, not what is written in your company values. And underlined are questions like, what happens to people? Do they become quieter or braver, more dependent or stronger, more careful or more honest? Think about that. I'm Kim, and apparently I have a YouTube channel now. This is just the beginning. See you next time.